Hello, welcome back. I'm getting a little more peace, talking about peace. And I had to turn this, I need a little more light. I turn on my fan. It's really, really hot today. Ooh, it heated up here in Cali. Um, welcome back. I'd like you to turn to Nehemiah 1, if you would for me. I just learned this story, and it really spoke to me. Um, it was, it was just really, I, I learned the tactics of the devil. And I think more and more we should be aware. I don't think that we should be obsessed with it, but I think that we should definitely be aware of it, of his tactics. And when you get saved, well, I mean, I guess some of you when you get saved, because some of you are such badasses that you're going to need like some generals. But when you first get saved, usually, I mean, the devil don't, he don't go out himself. He's got armies of demons. He's got tons of different demons, all different levels, like a military. And he is constantly coming at me. And I think the one thing that he tries to take from us the most is our peace and our joy. Because those are the things that we're supposed to hold on to and pursue. So if you'll please go to Nehemiah 1, please. I want to show you a story about this man that I just learned about. And I didn't know much about Nehemiah. I knew that there was a book in the Bible, but I didn't know what it was about. And I think a big part of peace and putting that action and pursuing peace is seeking is to meditate. But pursuing is to go after, to attack, to catch. And that's a strong action. That's a do something action. And Nehemiah had to do something. Nehemiah 1:1. The words of story of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah, now in the month of Chislev, in the 12th year of the Persian king, as I was in the castle of Shushan. Hananiah, one of my kinsmen, came with certain men from Judea, and I asked them about the surviving Jews who had escaped Israel, exile, and about Jerusalem. And they said to me, the remnant there in the province who escaped exile are in great trouble and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its fortified gates are destroyed by fire. When I heard this, I sat down and wept and mourned for days and fasted and prayed constantly before the God of heaven. And I said, O Lord of heaven, the great and terrible God who keeps covenant, loving kindness and mercy for those who love him and keep his commandments, let your ear now be attentive and your eyes open to listen to the prayer of your servant which I pray before you day and night for you Israelites, your servants confessing the sins of the Israelites which we have sinned against you. Yes, I and my father's house have sinned. We have acted very corruptly against you, and have not kept your commandments, statutes, and ordinances with you, which you commanded your servant Moses. Now, I notice jumping out in here is when I get out of peace is when I'm sinning and going against what God wants me to do, which is not trust him. God's going to provide. He shows us over and over and over again to those that love him and trust him and seek it. And he's going to take care of things. Like Nehemiah, we are to confess our sins and failures to the Lord, confident that he'll forgive us of those sins and failures and cleanse us from all unrighteousness, as he's promised in his word, 1 John 1:9, because we're now under the new covenant, we're under the new law, which is to love our God with all our heart and love our neighbors as we love ourselves. Nehemiah waited for God to respond to his prayers. You're going to do, I do a lot of petitioning, a lot of crying when I'm in disarray and disorder, when I'm listening to lies, of the devil, when I'm listening to other people who don't know, I get very much at peace. When my body, our bodies alone, like right now, our mind, my fiance, myself, and my daughter, our minds are not, we're going through that thing where we're all separating. My fiance and I are getting closer. My daughter is separating from us. And what was beautiful today, after I learned about being married, was that I was able to move on, and I was able to look up the condition, the empty syndrome. We all know. I promise you that the majority of crap that you're going to go through in life is getting emotional. And you are going to have so much more control over it, and your happiness and your mood and your attitude than most realize. And that's another lie that the devil tells us, is that we can't control it, that it's how we feel. And it is how we feel. But it isn't, it doesn't have to be how we act. Right? I'm learning that. It's how I feel. Absolutely. I'm terrified at times. I worry that I didn't do a good enough job. I don't understand what the heck's going on. I don't know if some of you have 18-year-olds out there, that have moved on. I've never done this before. I didn't know about the suddenly not talking thing, and that, all of that really threw me for a loop. I had this little girl who listened to every single word that I said, and then suddenly it's done. And now I'm of no, she's anxious to get out and spread her wings. And birds, they kick theirs out of us. They put their kicking, but you know what I'm saying. They push theirs out. And I'm doing that, but I'm fighting myself as I'm doing it. And when I woke up yesterday morning and I just broke down in tears, and I asked God for His wisdom. I'm learning how to speak to Him. Our relationship is getting to a place where He's showing me so clearly more exactly what I need. Instead of just help me, I need your wisdom, I need your guidance. Yesterday I needed His help, and I needed a word. I needed lots of words from Him directing me. I needed His direction. And I just really needed to talk to God. And I've kind of been doing it yesterday, and I had a very, very dear, cherished friend of mine come and see me after 15 years, so totally needed that. Had a great talk with my baby sister later that night for an hour, so needed that. And in between all of that, I listened to the Word, I read the Word, I got into the Word, I meditated on this story, and I realized that I had to do something, and that what I was doing wasn't being productive. And I got out the claim, and I started seeking God, and that's when I heard this story. Nehemiah, he was told of a need, and he did something right away. And the first thing he did was go to God, and then he put action to that. And the enemy, at every level, tried to stop him. In Nehemiah 2:10, Sanballat, the Horonite, and Tobiah, the servant. Now, Sanballat is the devil, and Tobiah is one of his demons. And Sanballat, the Horonite, and Tobiah, the servant, the Amorite, heard this. It distressed them exceedingly that a man had come to inquire for and require the good and prosperity of the Israelites. We move on to chapter 4, and here they come again, but when Sanballat heard that we were building the wall, here he's got the action, and they're there, and they're building the wall, he's putting action, and He's praying for the sins of Israel, and he's helping them rebuild, and he's gathering people together. And when the devil hits this, when Sanballat hears this, that we were building a wall, he was angry and in great rage, and he ridiculed the Jews. Jews, perfect. And he said before the brethren in the army of Samaria, what are these feeble Jews doing? Will they restore things? And by themselves, will they try to bribe their God with sacrifices? Will they finish up in a day? Will they revive the stones of the heaps of rubbish, seeing they are burned? I mean, when we sit there and we get our peace, aren't these the things that the devil is like putting into our heads? He's saying to us, you can't do this. What are you going to do? Right now, we're always up and down. We struggle financially right now, and we're always up and down. But, we're believing God for a miracle every month to pay our bills. And every month He comes through. Every single month He's come through. And I truly believe that I would be happy homeless on the streets, in the park. I don't care, as long as I have God. And, I've been told before that I should be careful when I say that, but, I'm not testing Him. I'm proclaiming my loyalty and love for Him. And He knows my heart. And I don't think that He's going to put me through it. And if He does, there's a reason. And I will always believe that. But I will still pray that He will help me meet my needs. Because if I can, always. Yes, of course. And I've always had a roof over my head. I've always had a roof over my head. I told my daughter that. I saw this in another story I heard. You think about when God led the Israelites out of Egypt. He took them the long way. There was a shorter route. And He took them the long way because if He had taken them the shorter route, then when they came against the giants, they would have turned around and ran back to captivity. They would have turned around and ran back to Egypt because they wouldn't have had the confidence in themselves. And I had asked for a word, and I realized, things have been this way because, first off, we all know the word. God shows us things. People say the ways of the Lord are mysterious, but I can't quote what verse that is exactly, but I can tell you, and I will before I leave you today, I can tell you that the rest of that verse, please continue reading. He wants to talk to you. The rest of that verse says, He wants to show you. The ways of the Lord are mysterious, except to those that love Him. To those that love Him and ask for guidance and ask to be shown, He shows up. And He showed me that, first off, in this country today, in this day and age in society, you either have to be incredibly poor or incredibly rich in order for your children to be able to go to college. Is that incredible debt? And another thing is that if my daughter if she hadn't gone through the top ramen days and the no coffee days, if she hadn't gone through some of those things, the wondering if we're gonna have a roof tomorrow, we do, and she sees how we do it. She may have just been taking the short route, and she may have ran from those trains. There was a girl in a college last year that she graduated top of her class, she got to college, and it's hard. It's not easy. You've got the emotions of reading, being independent, you're an open person, and on top of all that, these kids, they just work so hard. My daughter, she does homework constantly. And if you're going to be That's successful at something, you have to. And so this poor girl, she did that, and she killed herself. And that's what can happen. Maybe not always that drastic, maybe it'll be drugs, maybe it'll be something else. But they have to, be prepared. And we have to wait a lot. And we have to wait in peace. And we have to keep our peace when we do it, because God's preparing us. And if we don't keep our peace and stay in our peace, we stop hearing His voice so clearly. I'm going to take a break. We're a little over 15, and I just got to cut the tape when I get off. Be right back.